Here the wind tastes like your breath. It has charred my tongue and lungs. You are on another plane, in another time. Welcome everybody to another plane in another time on Thunderdome Metal Reviews. My name is Gabe Cooper. I'm here with my friends David, Ben, and Tracy. How y'all doing tonight?
Doing good.
Got some quality death metal, so pretty happy about it.
Yes, we are reviewing tonight the album Severed Monolith from 2017 by the Finnish death metal band Gorephilia.
Yeah, and before we get too far into this, just because of the tragic passing or suicide of their lead singer, Henry Kula, listed as Nemesis on the album, which we'll get to here in just a moment. Back in 2018, we just wanted to give out the number. We realized that we are quite frivolous and we attempt to be humorous, sometimes perhaps in poor taste, and we might even be later on in this episode. But with everything that's going on in the world and in the light of his suicide, we just wanted to take an opportunity to give out the number. If you are having, intrusive thoughts of suicide or anything else, or just need to talk to someone, the number for the Suicide Prevention Lifeline, at least here in the States, is 1-800-273-8255. And considering that we are entering a third year of the pandemic and everything else that is going on in the world, it's quite possible that some of you out there may need that. And we would, of course, encourage you to reach out to those people if you need someone to talk to. With that said, and that's stated, let us go ahead and talk more about this album. As Gabe said, Severed Monolith, second studio album released on 3/3 of 2017 on Dark Descent label. Tomi Ostavara was the producer. Runtime of 41 minutes and 52 seconds. Nemesis, lead vocalist listed as Henry Kula. Nemesis listed as Vomit, or vocalist on this. Tami Lukonen, bass. Yuka Aha, guitar. Pauli Gurko, guitar. Kako Kuesalo, battery or drums. So, what drew you to this as a choice, Gabe?
So I wanted to pick something like this. But I ended up picking this particular record because it was one that I discovered, I think about a couple of years ago, and particularly just enjoyed it. I found out about it either through Bandcamp or possibly through The Quietus. I tend to read the metal column in The Quietus pretty regularly, and just to see if there's any records that would stick out to me as something that I would like. And this one ended up coming up somewhere along the line, and it was recommended. It was a death metal record that was interesting and new at the time, so I checked it out. It turns out that they are Finns, and it turns out that this is really solid. It's really, really heavy, and it's interesting. It's not just run of the mill, so that's why I picked it.
This reminded me a lot of Cerebral Rot while I was listening to it. Just very, because I know when we talked about the Blood Red Throne, that was just pure death metal, 100%. This is pure death metal as well, but this has that sludgy putridness to it that Cerebral Rot has that I think I enjoy more than just here's your standard death metal affair.
Yeah, it's the Tomb Mold corner rather than, as you say, Blood Red Throne or black metal tempos, for that matter. So this album, I'll agree with Gabe, this album's heavy. And the vocalist was okay, was not my favorite, I'm not gonna lie. But again, I set a high standard given people like David Vincent. But everything here is very well played. This would be a little more filler than I would like, but most of those things are atmospheric and cool. So on the whole, yeah, I enjoyed this album. I enjoyed Cerebral Rot, so I mean, this was a pretty easy mark for this. I too have been sawed in half by lightning in deep space like this, so I feel that too.
Yeah, this is, you know, you mentioned that the vocalist on here is kind of, I don't want to say one note, but he does kind of
A
have like
little.
one trick. You're not going to see him really deviate from his same growl that he has throughout the whole entire album.
It's impressive, but yeah, there's just not much variation, and I like a
Yeah.
little bit more of that.
It's the weakest part of the album. Because the rest of it is incredibly heavy, but also it is not your standard stereotypical death metal riffing. You can tell that these guys were influenced by Morbid Angel. So I love the guitar tone. The bass and drums were in very good lockstep. But you know, it's just one of those. It's the one downside that I have with what I will say the majority of death metal is if you're just up there growling and it's next to impossible to make out what you're saying. With these guys being Finns, he might have been singing in a native language, not English. So I will scale back on that some. But if I can't understand you, then what the fuck is the point? I mean, I shared a video in our group chat of like one of those TikToks where somebody plays a death metal blast beat and then like has a dog growling that they modulate slightly to fit the beat, and you could have done that, and you were paid them in treats. So, yeah, and honestly, when I was in a band, I played bass, yes, but I was the primary lyric writer, so lyrics really matter to me. And if I can't understand what you're doing as a vocalist, it turns me off.
I want to say you can feel safe in assuming they didn't sing in Finnish because all the song titles are in English.
Yeah, I mean, probably, but you never know.
You can also find the lyrics online for the majority of the songs. So
But that
if
involves
you can't
extra
understand
work.
it while listening, it's extra work, sure. But I appreciate the criticism there about like the voice being the weakest part. I don't think it's the most interesting part for me. And just to respond also to what Tracy was saying about cerebral rot, the guitarist of this band is in another band called Crypts, and their album from 2019 is called Cadaver Circulation, and it's much more up my alley in terms of the style of death metal that it is. It's sort of like this cavernous death metal, and in a more classical way than this is per se. So yeah, I think we've definitely hit on some attractive things about this record. For me, it only really dips at the shorter and instrumental cuts that are on here. I think that that I would argue that the instrumental cuts are kind of filler. But then Trace would probably say, well, they're palate cleansers and you need them in there. I don't know. It's debatable.
I never really understood instrumental death metal.
I think instrumental death metal has its place. For one thing, it gets rid of the not being distracted by the vocalist, but I agree that the ones on this are kind of filler.
I mean, Morbid Angel does a few, and they're face melting and amazing, and these aren't. That's all right. It's overall not that long an album, so it wasn't.
No, I mean it's just not horrendously long or anything. And you know, it's also their second album. We have to keep that in mind. And I a lot of times, especially with Northern European bands from Northern Europe, they are actually in multiple bands. So I can't say how experienced any of these guys were with other bands that they've been in. But for a second album, it's pretty solid. I mean, it's definitely good enough that I would listen to something else of theirs.
Yeah, the third album I took in a little bit yesterday, and it's pretty different from this in the sense that this one I find to be a lot more aggressive. The third one is a little bit more consistent in style and tempo, and it's sort of more kind of slower, less attacky. But I don't know. What did you think, David?
I like the vocalist a little better. I do agree.
Okay. It's a different vocalist.
It's a different vocalist, yeah. But I do agree it was a little bit more down tempo and a little bit less high energy, but it was still, they're good, man. I like both of these albums. They just have their flaws.
Yeah.
Tomb Mold, I felt that same way. The playing on there was awesome. The vocalist, meh.
I think the
But-
Two Mode vocalist is a little more Cookie Monster than
He was
these
a little
guys
more
are.
Cookie Monster than this. Yeah.
Yeah,
little bit more toilet bowl.
That's what we all have our different terms for it. I call it toilet bowl vocals. It's all good. But this was heavy and fun and cool to listen to,
Mhm.
and I enjoyed it. So
Yeah, and the one thing I enjoyed about it, as you listen to it, is also you can kind of hear the space feel that you see in album cover a little bit in the music as you listen to it, which was kind of neat to hear. Because some bands will put that there and just kind of, whatever, it's just window dressing in a sense. But these guys do kind of give that a bit of like a space nightmare feel to it.
I would agree with that because I kind of feel it shared that in common, like Two Mode and there was another band,
Inferi or whatever.
Yeah, Inferi.
Yeah.
Whereas the thing that made Cerebral Rot really stand out over these guys was Cerebral Rot was so in on the joke.
Indeed.
And it was such a love letter to the genre in a way that I didn't feel that this was.
No, these people were dead serious.
Yeah.
So that's they can play their instruments. That's for sure.
I will also say, Cerebral Rot is like 10 times more experimental than this is. I mean, it's
Indeed.
they're not pushing the boundaries as much.
All right. Shall we move on to tracks?
All right. So I can go first. I think this is a strong opener. Interplanar is a strong opener. It's brutal, full-on attack, very, very nice. Hellfire, I also like a lot. Armageddon of the Souls is for me where the album opens up and the compositions start getting more interesting. Words Itself Problems, meh. Blackhorn is really nice. The Ravenous Storm is really, really awesome. And I also liked Return to Dark Space. Eternity, not so convincing. And then Crush Under the Weight of God is a really nice, long epic with kind of doom flavor to it. I dug that as well.
Yeah, I like those of you who know my relationship to Doom will not be surprised to hear that Crushed Under the Weight of God is my favorite track on the album. I also thought Interplanar was a very good opener. Armageddon of Souls, Ravenous Storm. I really wish that they didn't track the untitled instrumental as the closer and had just let Crushed Under the Weight of God finish the album. Because,
Absolutely.
there's 10 songs and there's 3 instrumentals, and none of them are necessary, in my opinion.
I'm going to agree with Ben on that.
I would have replaced 1 or 2 of them with actual songs. But
I wouldn't even put them on the album really, because Untitled, because Crushed Under the Weight of God ends such a great closer that I don't think they really needed that Untitled album track at the end of it. And then the 2 instrumentals in the middle there, Eternity and Words of Self Problems, kind of just take up space, and they're on like a minute 30.
There's too many of them. I mean, Morbid Angels did a pretty good job of often having one that then added, like the one that precedes God of Emptiness, Jesus, right? But that's like pure atmospherics. So I guess I'm pretty tolerant of, and Dawn Patrol I know is not an instrumental, but it's a very different kind of song than Polaris. Anyway, I think if we just chopped off 10 and maybe chucked Words That Solve Problems, but anyway, I think one of them is fine. They're well played and they're creepy and atmospheric. There's just too many for 10 tracks. And if sandwiching the closer like this, I feel like you kill momentum twice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But I'm going to agree that really everything outside the instruments is pretty good. I really enjoy Armageddon and Souls and Black Horns. I think they're probably the 2 best tracks off the album, along with Crushed Under the Weight of God.
Anything else to add, David, or did you say your piece?
I mean, all these songs are good when they, are songs. So, and even mediocre death metal, I'll go on that ride. This is pretty good. So I enjoyed this. I'm sure everyone around me thought I was crazy because I was, punching space skeletons in half. But what are you gonna do?
With your lightning fist.
With my light, would just arcing force lightning. Anyway, yeah, this is fun shit.
All right, time to grade it.
What do you know, Gabe?
So I think this is a great album. It's not the best death metal record I've ever heard, but it certainly has potential if you cut out some of the instrumentals. So I'm going to give it an A-.
Just behind that, I think it's an excellent album. It's a fun listen. The playing will melt your face off. Vocals, there's some issues there, but it's definitely a B+ for me.
Well, just to be a little step down, I think it's a good album. And that's me coming to it with my not quite love for death metal. So it's a good album. I'm not gonna recommend to people who don't enjoy death metal, but I think it's a good entry level death metal album.
Not just like your random friends, your wife's friends, your wife.
Yeah, after they get done listening to Paramore, hey, you should check out Gorephilia.
You should Gorephilia and Tomb Mold.
Yeah,
It's perfect pairing is Paramore in this record.
Perfect pairings, exactly.
That's true. The scene kids unite. I'm going to come in slightly under Tracy and give this a B- because I think that overall it is solid but not spectacular. It has one really great song, but between the vocals and the over reliance on the instrumentals, I'll just pull a couple of tracks off of it and never return to the album.
Talk about an interesting gradient there. We went from
It's a nice spectrum. It's better than like 3 people give it a good grade, 1 person gives it a bad grade.
I know.
Yeah, no, that's that's a much narrower range than I'm like, oh, it's pretty good, 93. But it's like F-. This is a 49. It's not even a 59.
But see, that I accept that with knowing full well that whatever album I pick, one of you guys can be like, fuck this album. Like I just know it's gonna happen.
That's not one of those guys. It's me.
Well, it's you, and sometimes David's like, nope,
once in a
can't
while
do
it's
it.
me though.
Or
I'm
Gabe's
like,
like, nope, can't do it.
It's
So
one
it's
of
just
us.
like,
The odds have gone up, not down, that people have been added to Thunderdome.
Yeah.
That somebody's going to be repulsed by what Tracy's offering.
I don't think I'm ever going to pick an album where everybody's like, yes.
You played funny where 2 of us were here for it, or
Actually,
1.
you have Scar. I mean, Gabe wasn't with us then, but Scar Symmetry, we were all pretty like with you for that.
Yeah. But that's one album out of the
Yeah, that's like
one
one.
band.
300.
That's one band out of 100,000 bands.
Yeah.
It's one out of a one
You're the
album
one
out
who
of.
said it would never happen.
Oh, I don't think
By
it's
the
ever
way.
going to happen again.
Gabe just hates Scar Symmetry just to make sure that
Yeah, just for the record, I hate Scar
Just-
Symmetry.
I fucking hate Scar Symmetry. I hate the
Gabe-
Eagles, man. Get out of my cab.
Gabe would probably enjoy Scarson. Man,
No, I like some of it. I mean, I've heard a couple albums so far, and I like it. So
Well, it's good. But our aggregate grade for this one is an 87, right there at a close to a B+.
Oh, what? We did it, team.
Self high five. Okay.
Our next
There you go.
album is going to be Ben's pick for January, and Dawn of Solstice, Flame of Perdition.
Oh, look, it's Earth.
Yeah, for sure.
It's going great.
Phenomenal. Live look at the hemisphere.
Live look at the world right now.
Live look at a lot of things.
Yeah.
But anyway, enough of that. Once again, we encourage you that if you're having suicidal ideations, that you reach out to that number. Which, let me see if I can pull that back up again.
Oh, there also something else I want to add into it. They have
Mhm.
added a specific transgender hotline.
Oh, well, please give that up.
That is 1-800-273-8255.
That's the same number as the regular number.
Oh, it is? Okay.
Yes.
But I guess they now have, if you call and say you're transgender, they have.
They probably do have a specialist on hand, but
Yeah.
All right. Catch
Tune
you
in next
again
time.
next time.
Sorry to end on a down note, but please call that number.